They fired 2 shots through the tinted window. My wife went down with a grunt, screaming, blood, chaos. One fake cop yelled with a panicked voice, "She's armed." As if a clipboard and a military ID qualified. They didn't know where they were. They didn't know who she was. They had just opened fire on a military base. An hour later, their entire HOA neighborhood had a convoy of government vehicles rolling in, bulldozers, forensics, lawyers. I, Major Thomas Mitchell, was at the front holding a demolition order and sipping coffee from my number 1 husband, number 2 weapon mug. My name is Major Thomas Mitchell, U.S. Army Logistics Operations. My wife, Captain Sarah Mitchell, is base legal counsel and my tactical better half. We live just outside Pine Ridge Reserve, a gated HOA community that promised rustic privacy and civility. It delivered exactly 0 of those things. The HOA president, Karen Blackwood, looked like a stressed real estate agent with a Napoleon complex. She wore power suits to Saturday morning board meetings and carried a clipboard like it was a weapon of mass destruction. She once threatened to fine a Vietnam vet for having non-regulation garden gnomes. Her HOA newsletter was called The Orderly Eagle and included regular columns like Bush Height Watch and suspicious activities we haven't proven yet. Karen hated us from the start. She said with a condescending tone that military types were a bit aggressive for community spirit. We just wanted to live near base. She wanted to cosplay dictator. The first time we met her, she was measuring our grass with an actual ruler. She looked up at us with a fake smile and said, "Welcome to Pine Ridge, where standards matter." It started with letters. Our flag was too big, never mind that it was the American flag and we were active military. Our driveway concrete was too gray. The approved shade, according to subsection 12.3 of the HOA bylaws, was autumn mist, not storm cloud. One day, Sarah was handed a citation for aggressively saluting. The violation notice actually said she had performed a military gesture in a threatening manner near the community mailboxes. Then came the so-called Pine Ridge Enforcement Patrol, 3 men in matching polo shirts and tactical belts. They drove around in a golf cart with flashing amber lights and a siren that sounded like a dying goose. They left notes citing patriotism violations, and once filmed Sarah walking into our garage like they were tracking a fugitive. The lead enforcer was Karen's nephew, Dale Blackwood, a 35-year-old who still lived in his mother's basement and collected replica badges. His partners were Rex Garrison, Karen's ex-boyfriend who got the job after their messy breakup as some kind of twisted alimony, and Bruno Watts, a failed mall security guard who called everyone "citizen" in a deep voice. I filed complaints. Nothing. The HOA said they were neighborhood volunteers maintaining community standards. Then they began harassing Sarah at the gate, demanding proof she resided in the community. One evening, Bruno actually tried to grab her ID with an aggressive motion, saying he needed to verify her face matched the photo. Sarah handled it with military precision. She stared him down and said in a calm voice, "Touch me again and you'll be explaining to real cops why you're impersonating law enforcement." But Karen's response was to double down. She sent us a letter saying Sarah had threatened community safety personnel. The harassment escalated. They started following Sarah to the grocery store, taking photos of her license plate. They filed reports about our dangerous dog, which was actually our neighbor's corgi that sometimes wandered into our yard. They even tried to tow my car while I was deployed, claiming it had been abandoned because it hadn't moved in 2 weeks. The final straw came on a Tuesday morning when Sarah stopped by my base office to drop off my forgotten lunch, and the fake cops followed her in. They passed through the civilian gate using forged paperwork that claimed they were federal contractors. The gate guard was new, barely 19, and didn't question the official-looking documents with fake seals Dale had printed at a copy shop. When Sarah entered my office building, they followed, claiming to be federally tasked community safety officers. I was in a meeting with my commanding officer when I heard the commotion in the hallway. Sarah's voice, calm but firm, saying, "You need to leave this facility immediately." Then Dale's voice, high-pitched with false authority, "Ma'am, we have jurisdiction here under Community Federal Partnership Statute 917. There is no such statute." He made it up on the spot. Then, insanely, they tried to detain her. Bruno grabbed her arm. Rex pulled out zip ties. Sarah, trained in military law and self-defense, identified herself clearly. "I am Captain Sarah Mitchell, Judge Advocate General's Corps, United States Army. You are on federal property without authorization. Leave now." When she moved to use the emergency phone on the wall, one panicked. Dale screamed, "She's going for a weapon." Another yelled with fear in his voice, "She's hostile." They drew cheap, unregistered sidearms, Saturday night specials they bought at gun shows. Fired. 2 shots. One hit her in the shoulder. The other lodged in the wall 6 inches from a portrait of the president. Wrong move. Catastrophic move. The building went into immediate lockdown. Alarms blared. Within 30 seconds, military police surrounded them. Within 2 minutes, Dale was on the ground crying that this was all a misunderstanding. Within 5 minutes, Base Command was notified, then federal law enforcement, then the Department of Defense legal apparatus. The HOA had just attacked a military officer on a military base. I rushed out of my meeting to find Sarah on the ground, blood seeping through her uniform, but still giving a perfect witness statement to the MPs. "That's my wife, shot and still building the case." I watched it unfold like a live-action self-destruct. The shooters were detained in separate vehicles. Dale sobbed and claimed Karen made him do it. Rex tried to argue they had citizens' arrest powers. Bruno just kept saying, "I want my lawyer," over and over like a broken record. Karen was hauled out of a board meeting mid-muffin. The federal agents didn't knock. They walked into the Pine Ridge Community Center where she was lecturing residents about the new regulations on bird feeder heights. Her face when they announced she was under arrest for conspiracy was better than any Christmas. She actually tried to cite HOA bylaws to federal agents, saying they needed board approval to enter the meeting. The investigation was thorough and devastating. Turns out her HOA enforcers weren't just local morons. They were an organized group with a budget line item hidden in the landscaping fund. They had a group chat called Code Red Lawns where they shared surveillance photos of residents. They trained using YouTube videos titled "How to Look Like a Cop Without Getting Sued and Citizens Arrest Made Easy." The forensic accountants found everything. Karen had been embezzling HOA funds for years, using them to pay her enforcers under the table and fund her twisted power trips. She'd spent $30,000 on surveillance equipment, $20,000 on the fake patrol golf carts, and $50,000 in salary to her nephew and his crew. The community's reserve fund was empty. The money meant for road repairs and park maintenance had gone to funding her private army. The HOA's finances were shredded. Fraud, misuse of dues, unauthorized security funding, tax evasion, and racketeering charges started piling up. Sarah was stable, recovering, furious. From her hospital bed, she was already drafting legal briefs. The military and federal government came down like a hammer, a very expensive, well-documented, taxpayer-funded hammer. The base commander, General Patricia Hayes, took personal interest. Turns out, attacking military personnel on base triggers about 17 different federal statutes and makes very important people very angry. Within a week, the neighborhood was declared compromised due to organized criminal activity. A judicial ruling enabled eminent domain for an expansion buffer zone around the base. The residents had 2 options: sell at market value minus a substantial security risk deduction or face years of legal battles they couldn't afford. Bulldozers moved in. The Pine Ridge entrance gate with its pretentious stone pillars came down first. Then Karen's house, a McMansion with 4 different shades of beige that somehow all violated her own HOA color guidelines. Properties were assessed and purchased at insultingly low market rates due to the now infamous Blackwood incident. I stood on what used to be Karen's front lawn, now the future site of a base recreation field, and watched her cry over her confiscated HOA flag while agents boxed her orderly eagle-back issues. She kept wailing about property values and community standards while forensic accountants explained her rights. The trials were swift. Military court for the assault, federal court for everything else. Sarah testified from a wheelchair, her shoulder still healing, and methodically destroyed every defense they tried. Dale claimed he thought Sarah was trespassing until the prosecutor showed his text messages saying, "We're going to follow that military witch onto base and show her who really has authority." Rex tried to argue diminished capacity from PTSD from his time as a mall cop. The judge said in a dry tone, "Being yelled at by teenagers for confiscating skateboards does not constitute trauma sufficient for a diminished capacity defense." Bruno just pleaded guilty to everything and begged for mercy. The sentences came down hard. The 3 fake cops each got 15 years in federal prison for assault on a federal officer with a deadly weapon, impersonating federal officers, and conspiracy. No parole, no early release, 15 years in federal maximum security. Karen Blackwood got 5 years for conspiracy to commit fraud, embezzlement, and misuse of HOA funds totaling $300,000, plus a $2 million fine that would bankrupt her 3 times over. She screamed with disbelief as the judge read the sentence. This was about property values.